Pakistan and Bangladesh and Afghanistan. But the bill has stirred anger because it excludes Muslim refugees from the three neighbouring countries. Opposition politicians and rights groups say the exclusion of Muslims is part of the government's Hindu nationalist agenda. But defending the bill, the Home Minister says India's Muslim citizens have nothing to fear.
It
is a question of giving citizenship to people who have come because of religious persecution. The minorities or any Muslims need not worry. I want to say this clearly. Nobody needs to worry. If anyone threatens you or scares you, don't get scared. This is Narendra Modi's government that is moving with the spirit of the Constitution, so the minorities will get full protection.
So a curfew has been imposed in parts of the northeastern state of Assam, where mass demonstrations against the bill have turned violent. The protesters oppose the bill for a different reason there. They say indigenous communities will be marginalised if a large number of Hindu migrants from Bangladesh are granted citizenship. Well, protests are also taking place in neighbouring Tripura state, where large migration from Bangladesh over the past few decades has already reduced the indigenous population to a minority. Well, for more on this, let's bring in Aanchal Vora. She's joining us live from New Delhi. So despite those large protests, Aanchal, the bill has passed as expected.
Absolutely, Elizabeth, and it was always expected to be the case because the government had the numbers. It was very clear that the government is going to push this bill through. It has been in the manifesto of the Hindu Nationalist Party that is currently governing this country for a very long time, and that was one of the first things that the Home Minister of this country, Amit Shah, said when the proceedings began in the upper house today. He said that they have the people's mandate to make sure that this bill passes through. That's how he started. However, in a democracy, it's also about what the minorities think and not just what a majority's, even if it is a majority's view is. So lots of questions as far as this legislation is concerned. This bill is soon going to be a law now. Several different kinds of objections have been raised. You spoke about protests that have taken place in the northeast of India, and that is because people there have opposed the presence of Bengalis, both Hindus and Muslims, for a very long time. They say they're trying to protect their culture, but also livelihood. That's their reason. And these protests, we believe, are expected to continue as a preventive measure. The law enforcement authorities there have imposed a curfew. They have also they will be shutting down the internet. It's still sort of working because I'm in touch with people there, but over the next few hours it's going to be a complete shutdown, we believe. Indian Army is on standby there. One column is of 70 soldiers, so one column is on standby in Assam, and two columns are on standby in Tripura, where also we've seen protests. Now, the big question is, will this government come up with some sort of a formula to at least assuage the concerns of the people in the northeast of India, and what that formula is going to be? There are 7 states, 5 states have been exempted from the Citizenship Amendment Bill, soon to be law, and 2 states, Assam and Tripura, there are partial exemptions, so we've seen massive protests continue there.
So protests, the largest protests we've seen so far, interestingly, Aanchal, are by those who don't want these migrants and refugees from Bangladesh being given citizenship, regardless of their religion, whether they're Hindu or whether they're Muslim. But elsewhere in the country, there have also been protests, and people taking part in those say that the Citizenship Amendment Bill, it is anti-Muslim and anti-secular, and that they will challenge this in the Supreme Court because they see it as being against the Indian Constitution.
That is correct. So it is expected to be challenged in the Supreme Court. Many top legal minds have said that it is unconstitutional. It is against 2 very, very prominent articles in the Constitution. One of them says that you cannot discriminate on the basis of religion, creed, and sex. But this one, many believe, is discriminating on the basis of religion. Now, there is a clause in it that if exceptions can be made if they are reasonable, but that is what is going to be, I'm assuming, argued by the government in the court, that this in fact is a reasonable classification to be made. Now, we've got to sort of wait and see how this plays out in the courts. But right now on the streets, actually, we've not seen as many protests as one would have imagined one would, because of the nature of this bill going against, some analysts say, against the secular nature of the Indian Constitution of India. We have seen some protests in the national capital. We've seen protests essentially in universities where most of the students come from the minority community, Jamia Millia Islamia in Delhi and Aligarh University in Uttar Pradesh. So these people are saying that, look, you've got to look at this bill in conjunction with the National Register of Citizens, which is a practice that was conducted, I beg your pardon, an exercise that was conducted in Assam to determine who is an Indian citizen, and it left out 2 million people. So the Muslim opposition leaders and activists are saying that now this exercise is going to be conducted all over India, and when that happens, Hindus will find it easier to prove their citizenship, but it's not going to be very easy for the Muslims.
Anshul, thank you for that. For now, that is Anshul Vora with the latest live in New Delhi. And Faizan Mustafa is Vice-Chancellor at Hyderabad's Nalsa University of Law.
Their concern is non-communal. We had seen subnational Assamese sentiment in Assam, and people in Northeast, they are not bothered about the religion of the migrants. What they are saying that their local culture and local language is under threat. And since people from Bangladesh speak Bangla, so they are opposing anyone who is speaking Bangla. So initially, when this entire movement started few decades ago, we had an Assam Accord and we had a cutoff date of 24th March 1971. So now, in spite of exemption for some of the areas in Northeast, people are saying, since you are bringing forward this cutoff date to the 31st of December 2014, there will be a large influx of people from Bangladesh who would migrate to these areas and who will get Indian citizenship. So it's the local sentiment, but what they are saying that this principle, this bill also impinges on the secular character of the constitution. And, some of their concerns are genuine, because in Tripura, it seems the indigenous people are increasingly in the minority.
Let's move on to other news now. And Myanmar's leader Aung San Suu Kyi